All right, you guys. So today is our last day of instruction for this class, and we're going to wrap up. We're going to start and wrap up Unit 5 on concept or conveyance of concept and theme within a composition. So, concept, an abstract idea, a general notion. In visual art, concept is an idea or invention to help sell or publicize a commodity or a story, or to create a mental picture of a philosophy based on combining groups or classes of objects by their aspects. In this module, we'll explore concept in two parts, the principle of concept through conveyance and theme. In visual media, conveyance is the delivery of meaning or mood from the observed to the observer. Clothing and automobiles convey. Architecture conveys. Furniture and so on. And conveyances deliver concept through themes. Theme is an envelope in which the concept of a piece is sent. Theme is the tone of a piece, its emotional appeal, its style of presentation. And theme can only be achieved through the visual elements within a composition that convey meaning, connotations about the subject, or meaningful connotations about the subject. In visual art, conveyance occurs through words, typography, shape, images, placement, decoration, composition, and style. And all those elements, when used, must point toward the theme of a piece. So these are things that we've actually been exploring this entire semester, starting with placement and division of the visual elements. We were always working toward telling some sort of a story or conveying some sort of concept or theme. And we also explored that through grouping and harmony, as well as emphasis, alignment, and flow. So we've explored focusing on those principles in small chunks. And now for this module, we're going to explore creating a final composition where we focus on all of those principles together at the same time. We make a real effort to demonstrate effective applications of these principles within a composition. So conveyance is relative. So it's important to understand your audience in order to know how to connect with them through conveyance. Both the content of a layout and the style in which the content is presented carry meaning to the viewer. This is conveyance in action. If you think about it, we've been thinking about conveyance and theme all along. With each assignment, your design projects have all required you to convey a theme. We've just focused on different principles to convey those themes throughout. So, like, for instance, the Spring Garden Show. The theme of spring is conveyed through the visual echoes of typography, image, and color palette. So, in this image, we've used exact examples of things that make us think of spring. Pictures, in particular. So we have actual content that makes us think of spring activities of gardening. We also have a color scheme here that also aligns with that concept. And so, placement and division, things like that, that just helps to create a more dynamic layout so that we create a sense of visual hierarchy, and it's easier to navigate your way through an advertisement like this. We have the same example here, but for fall. So we worked through these demos earlier, and here we have a theme that's being conveyed through echoes of content and color. So we started with this floral element at the top of the window, and all of the rest of the visual elements that you see have color that's been pulled from that image. And fall colors, so burgundies, dark greens, oranges, yellows, things like that. So, and again, placement and division of the content. It helps us to be able to make it less boring. It keeps it from being a document that we have to muddle through to find the important information. It creates a sense of visual hierarchy so that we know right away that just through content, echoes of content and color, and the way that we've divided and placed these elements, all these things lend themselves to conveying a topic or a theme. Inclusion awareness. I don't have this one pulled up, but that's the one with the scooters. Remember that? Where we have the grouping of scooters in the bottom of the corner, and we have the one scooter that sits way up in the upper left corner. And so creating this interesting placement and division of those grouping of subjects creates this tension, that speaks to the concept of what that poster was about inclusion or the lack thereof. We also looked at different ways of grouping objects to convey a certain theme. So, we talked a lot about having a grid framework onto which all of the visual elements are applied to create a sense of cohesiveness. And typically that works in almost all, graphic design compositions, whether it's for print or something that's always going to be viewed on a monitor. But we also explored how you can break the rules if you understand the rules about alignment. And so in this example, we use the theme of discord as a way in chaos, to align the elements, because it speaks to the theme. We have this scooter that we exaggerated in Photoshop, applying some effects to it to really give it a more gestural kind of appearance, as though it's jumping out of the artboard toward us. And instead of just having these type elements just stacked in kind of bulleted formation or some sort of listed formation, which would be boring, and there would be a disconnect between the excitement of the illustration parts of this and the type elements, we made the type elements participate with the excitement of this gestural pose of this scooter. And also color. So we wanted to choose colors that were bright. We didn't use colors that were dulled down. So this was a later version. We actually have worked with this file twice in this semester. So in this iteration is when we were really focusing on how color can be used as a way to convey theme and concept. And so using bright colors, not muted down, dusty colors, but high saturated colors, that also lifts up the theme and carries that theme of excitement. And then how we had the type adhere to the scooter, which is our main focal point, having it participate, gesturally in that whole composition. Let's see if I have another example. Auto descent. So again, placement and division of the content, but we also have other things that are working with this as well. So we have echoes of color from in content. So we have, visual elements, the way they're placed, the treatments that we've given them with the motion blurs behind these cars to really put those cars in motion. The direction of things, the direction of the objects. The cars are crashing down. The man is looking up. His fingers are even pointing up. So you've got this meeting in the middle, where this impending doom is getting ready to happen, where the cars finally fall on the man. And then we have the type that, I chose a color that is a complement to the background. It really pops it forward, and added a warp to it to accentuate that feeling of things crashing down, that the movement of the piece. So this is another example of how we've been thinking about how to convey these concepts. So obviously the concept for this is doom, danger, and we were able to create that scene by finding the right content to use in the scene. So if we saw someone down here that was just kind of serenely smiling off into the clouds, that would not align with the concept of this overall theme. We need someone who's shrieking in horror. And then we need these cars falling from the sky. We need a background that looks angry and chaotic. All of these things add to delivering the concept of this theme. So I want to show you some other examples.
I like those names.
What's that?
Stormy Chase.
Oh, yeah.
Lincoln Ford.
I always try to be creative with the names, and I appreciate that you recognize that. I also like sneaking my students' names into projects, too, if you haven't noticed that already. So here's another one. And this is one that I'm actually going to make some changes to. All right? So the concept is adrift. All right?
I can see that.
You can see it?
I
When I made up this idea, I thought these would be perfect in that movie. Morgan Freeman would be that voice of calmness and let's think this out, and everybody else is just losing their minds. But in this composition, I think it's close to conveying the idea of adrift, what it feels like to be adrift. But we have an element that's kind of working against this concept. And I'd love to hear from the class, what element do you think that is? What could we do better to really enforce this idea of being isolated and adrift and off all on your own?
guess since it's like a rated R movie, let's assume that it could be like some weird paranormal entity inside the water, so we give it like a dark lighting instead of like on the far left it has bright on that side.
Here?
Yeah, it's brighter. You can make like the whole picture darker to kind of give it, a little bit more of an eerie feel.
That's kind of an interesting concept. I didn't think about that, so I just need to rework this entirely. But no, that's kind of a good idea. You could actually put a transparent layer over this and create it black, turn the opacity down, use the eraser with a soft brush, and create what kind of looks like a spotlight, homing in on the boat. That would create a really intense feeling of isolation and being adrift. And lower the opacity so you can still see the water behind it. But what's another suggestion?
Move the title down to the center, like it's actually in the middle of the ocean alone.
Okay, so you say move the title to the center. So I think that if we did that, what we'd end up with is where your attention goes to the middle and you don't feel so adrift. You feel kind of securely, statically placed in the middle. That would be my feeling about that if we did it that way.
I don't think you need to make the title like so big. You might have said this, but it's really large.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you did want to move it down to the bottom to make the boat feel more like single and alone, maybe just shrinking the size of the title font just a little bit and keeping it down closer towards the rating.
Right, the title down here.
Yeah.
That could be one arrangement for sure. I think the biggest thing, and I think you were really kind of touching on that, is the fact that we have the focal point, which is the sailboat with the shadow, so close to the title. And so that works against the concept of feeling adrift and cast out to sea. And so one of the things that I would do to make this really reinforce this idea is possibly move these two elements, the drop shadow and the boat, and maybe have them have somewhere down here where they're where they're almost leaving the scene. They're just so far down here, and there's such a gulf between these two. That really reinforces that idea of being lost and separate from everything else in isolation. So just simple little things like that. So placement and division. There's a great example of really using those principles to drive home that idea of being adrift. I have an illustrator example that's kind of fun to play around with. Darkness Hall. It is creepy, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. That face at the end of the hallway is so creepy and subtle, and I feel like I'm going to go to hell just for looking at it. So we have a lot of elements here that convey the theme. All right, so let's name off some of them. Hit me with them, huh? It's dark for one. Mm-hmm.
Even though we know there's a face at the end of the hallway, no telling what else is further down in the hallway.
Yeah.
Of course, the font pretty much gives it away. Like there's some broken, letters right there's a little gap.
Yeah. The letters are kind of grungy looking, worn for the wear, bloody, dripping blood.
I'm not real thrilled about the font.
I like it.
Well, it's not for everybody, I guess. I see things all the time that I'm not real fond of in design, so this might be one of them for you, Gates. But, having the letters drip, as if they're dripping blood. But there's something also, so you guys named off all the things that I hoped and kind of knew that you would recognize right away. Mayo! It's been a while, man. I hope I get to see you before we're out for the semester. Yeah.
Maybe.
We'll catch up.
Okay.
Good to see you.
It is all aligned.
Huh?
It's all middle aligned.
Okay, so Sarah's hitting on something that I'm trying to steer y'all toward. So earlier we were talking about in the Adrift poster, some things were said about maybe moving things in the center, but then that actually makes those elements seem more secure in that composition. In this case, I deliberately formatted everything to point towards the center, to keep you in there, to keep you feel kind of trapped and stuck in that spot. That your eye wants to go right to this guy's nose. So you could draw lines from the hallway that meet to his nose. You can draw lines from the ceiling and the walls that meet to his nose. And the way I stacked the type elements also point to that center point. So what in this example, the theme is horror, and the layout is meant to, not just the layout, but also just the styling elements are all meant to convey the theme of horror and also keep you feeling stuck is not the right word. Just confined, trapped. Yeah, trapped in a scary space. And one thing that I might even do with the type elements, even though our friend Gates is not a fan of the type style, just kidding. One thing that I might do is even accentuate some drip marks just maybe beneath the letters A and L to kind of complete that arrow pointing down to this face structure at the end of the hallway.
I also kind of like the idea of changing the font to a little bit darker red because
Yeah.
What it is.
it matches the lighting a little bit. If that
I
makes
just
sense.
wish we were all red.
All red. And, that's a possibility too. You could easily turn those layers off. And that's pretty dramatic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I was about to say
Yeah.
too. Maybe
Well,
a little
it
bit.
could, but here's the deal. If you start to, and you'll see this, for yourself, if you start to adjust and add more black, more dark tinting to that hue, then it starts to get lost in the black background. So you need something that's really bright and pops from that background, because everything else is so muted down and dark and mysterious, and we need something that's really going to grab your attention. So you guys remember the trick about converting type to outlines, right? And so if I wanted to, I could come in here and just create a few more drips. That kind of point to the center. That just help to direct your attention as a continuation, toward this person. But I would be very deliberate about these drips dripping in the formation of an implied triangle in the center, like an arrow pointing to that. So these are just some examples of, conveyance, how to convey a concept or a theme in a composition, where everything works together cohesively. All of the visual elements are supporting each other and working together in concert to help deliver this theme. So in this next assignment, you guys are going to redesign a movie poster. And it has to be a real movie, a movie that actually exists. And what I want you to do is I want you, when you submit your final project, it needs to be in the format like what you see on these posters here. I don't care which side is which, whether you put the actual original poster on one side and the redo on the other, doesn't matter to me. But they need to be side by side. I need to see the original movie poster. Sorry for walking in front of you, Danny. I need to see the original movie poster along with the redo. And you can only use minimalist visual elements, okay? So you could use type. Of course, you can use color. You can imply texture, but I don't want to see photographs of textures. So no photographic elements and no special effects. You can still imply things like drop shadows and glowing edges with how you use solid filled objects, adjusting opacities, offsetting objects to create that sense of dimension. So I have some examples of previous student work for this assignment, and then other things that I found on the web. So let me pull those up for you, and then let's take a little tour of those. Okay.
This type of tool?
Yeah, a hardware tool of any kind. Yeah.
Oh, okay. You have to do 3 different phases of the tool?
Yes.
Like this, then I can make it my own and make it something else using this.
Yes, if I understand your question. Okay, you guys, so here's some examples here. Let me see if I can reduce the size of this a little bit because it's taking up. Isn't that awesome? So this is out in the display case. This is Xavier Taylor. He was a previous student of ours. So he chose Iron Man. This was his poster. This is how he set it up. So I want you guys to set yours up exactly like you see it here, okay? And if I get things in onesie-twosies, I'm going to wonder, where were y'all that day when I went over this? How did you miss that main detail? So this needs to be one document with 2 panels in it, okay? So he chose Iron Man. This is one of the original posters. A lot of times movie posters will have more than one kind of iteration of it, so there might be another one out there that exists for that same movie. But this is the one he chose, and this is his redo. So he stuck with very simple forms. It's vector art, so it made it very easy for him to be able to select objects and switch up colors just with a click of a button. He created real, minimalist looking design elements. So these, I guess these are rockets. Ships, yeah. I don't know my aeronautics stuff very well or my weaponry, but Anyway, you can see he has an established color scheme here that works really well. The complementing colors work really well. Simple forms, these blue elements, these beams, just simple elongated triangular shapes that really communicate this sense of movement. Someone soaring up into the sky. Same thing with these ships down here. And then he created some sort of a space station looking architectural piece down here, just using simple line elements and solid filled color. I like the way he used, this red in the background for the majority of the composition window. It gave him plenty of room to let the title and the spaceman and the ships and their beams that shoot up, those really stand out well against this solid background. And it also left a nice place to put the names of the actors in the movie. So here's another one, Don't Breathe, never seen it. The only thing that I would have done differently was maybe not have pink lips with the red. Those colors don't look right to me. I would have done something different. But the concept I thought was pretty strong. I mean, it was, simple design elements, the lips with the zipper across the mouth. I mean, I thought that really conveyed the theme. It conveys what I'm seeing in this example here. The idea of keep your mouth shut, don't scream, don't breathe, don't let out a peep. And so I thought that, that was a pretty good way to approach that as far as the visual elements. I would have made some different choices with color. And I might have even kept the background black instead of gray, just to really make the title and this circular symbol for no really stand out even more. I think that the lips could have even been red. Some tricks could have been played on this, no symbol somehow. Maybe giving it the appearance of a drop shadow by offsetting that shape a little bit and staggering it, or offsetting it a little bit. A darker shape behind a repeated shape of this and offset. That could have created enough of a delineation, between those two elements to really set them apart. But I thought that was, an interesting approach. Gone Girl. I liked this one. I loved the simplicity of it. Now, she did use drop shadows. She actually used a real effect. But it's not overpowering. It doesn't, look like it. I mean, I don't think it's something you notice right away. I think that she could have achieved the same thing with just a duplicate of these cards, scale them down a little bit, adjust, create a black version of it as a drop shadow, adjust the opacity, and still been able to have the shadow elements. But either way, she did a great job at describing that these are a sense of depth. These are stacked cards overlapping one another. And I just like the simplicity of it. It's a great example of taking a minimalist approach to convey the theme and the concept of this movie. So if you've seen the movie, if y'all ever seen this movie, I know that there are I haven't seen the whole thing. I've seen bits and pieces, but I know that there are clues left here and there on these cards. It's a real symbolic part of this movie. And so I thought it was great that she homed in on that element of that movie and made that the focal point. So feel free to take creative license when you're making your poster. If there's some theme or concept or an occurrence that can be translated into visual elements that really speaks to you about that film or really stands out as something that could be used to convey that concept, feel free to do that. August Rush. This isn't bad. It's a little too plain. I I might have done a little something else with it, but this student, they took the idea of what you're seeing in this example here with the kid playing guitar and this, celestial body behind him, probably the planet Earth, and kind of repeating that idea, in this second version. I'm not crazy about the type style. I really don't like that. I don't think it works for this at all. I probably would have stuck with a type style that's more consistent with the original poster. There's nothing wrong with it. It reads well. This just has a whole different kind of vibe to me, and it doesn't make me think of music. I mean, unless we're, I don't know, playing the mouth harp and the jug and the the banjo. It doesn't make me think of. It doesn't make me think of, just what this movie is about. So anyway, but I thought it was a reasonable attempt at taking this concept and showing it in a more minimalist light. Here's another one. Minimalist poster design redo. So Spider-Man, and then we have our Spider-Man example over here to the right. So just very simple geometric shapes. Again, color plays a big role in this, so don't forget about the power of color. Choose colors that work for the theme. There's no way you could design something for Spider-Man without using these colors. If you do use colors that are not these colors, then you've totally missed the mark. So, and they did a good job, being mindful of that. Phosphate, the phosphate type style. I don't mind that. What I like about that is that you're able to use those two complementing colors in that. And then the web element, just simple pen tool, or this actually could have possibly started from that spiral tool. I don't know if you guys have ever explored those tools in Illustrator, but they have tools that make spirals and graphs, and it's just vector art, and you can still ungroup it and modify it. And I kind of think that maybe that's what they did with this. But it's simple, it works. And I like the gradient. I think if it were all the same red from top to bottom, it would have an overall just kind of flatness. It would be okay, but this just kind of adds some visual interest to it, or a sense of depth to it. So I thought that worked really well. This one, At the Devil's Door. So this is a previous student here that created this. And she just literally went for the door, which is fine. And then put the crucifix upside down, so, there's some symbolism in that. The color down here where it says a film by Nicholas McCarthy, I would have kept that lettering maybe the same as the type. And the door seems to be a little bit of a different red than the title. But those are easy fixes. I like the font style, so you got to think about the type elements. So you're going to have to use type in your poster. Make sure that you choose one that has a style that fits the theme. So this is kind of, broken, grungy, kind of lettering, and it works well for this theme. Okay, and then we have some other examples. These are some that I found online. Just increase the size of this. So The Walk. So here's the original movie poster for that. And then this is a student translation of that. So silhouette images. Almost in the icon family, so something that we just kind of covered on Monday. Think about ways that you can use realistic objects and create silhouettes of those objects that help describe the story. But I liked, the way line is used in this composition. and not just line used just all by itself, but the way it's placed, the angle that it's set at. It, creates this tapering at the bottom. And then just a simple line element for the tightrope and the silhouetted figure. Very simple ideas. And then the white lettering at the top, it's very plain, sans serif. It's easy to read against that blue background. So think of simple color schemes. Don't go too crazy with color. I would stick with, maybe no more than 4 colors in your poster if you can. If you start introducing too many colors, then that starts to distract from the visual elements that you've created and the type elements, because they start competing for attention. So you need to choose a color palette that's going to be powerful and that it's going to relate contextually to the theme, and make sure that it's a fairly restricted palette as well. Misery. So you've all seen this movie, right? Yeah, it's a good one. So this is a redo of that. And just like the previous example that you saw of Michaela's Gone Girl poster, she homed in on the little notes, the clues that are left behind for people to find, to try and find out the mystery of all. Well, if you've seen this movie, then you'll remember a very compelling scene that is stomach churning and extremely hard to watch, and it involves a mallet and a 2x4. And so this person homed in on that iconic scene from that movie. And so everyone who knows this movie and they love this movie, this presentation to convey the theme nails it for sure. Simple graphics, simple visual elements, okay? So remember, minimalist and simple. Never seen the movie, but I heard about this scene. And so there's the movie poster. And then if you've seen the movie and you've seen this scene, you know exactly what that's from. And so say no more. And I just think it's wrong that they put the type right down here. I love the Pamela Andersons.
That's great.
But simple. I mean, simple, minimalistic, but doesn't it just encapsulate the absurdity of that whole movie? Dirty Dancing. So this is still minimalist.
I like
Yeah, it's nice. It's simple. And it just, again, it pulls from a specific scene in that movie.
that is the most iconic dance scene probably ever.
This one, and that's probably why this designer chose that. Yeah. So again, I want to see the original and I want to see the redo. All right. And so let's look at, things like placement and division. So how's the space divided? The water isn't dividing this into 2 equal halves. It's more into thirds. And whereas, so that the figures take up the top 2/3 of the composition window. And that makes sense because that's the most important focal point, not necessarily the water. The water is just kind of an afterthought. I like how the waves are handled, the ripples around him, just with some simple lighter blue ellipses that describe the fact that this is water. And the color palette is nice. Overall, it's pretty monochromatic if you just think about all the blue in it. But there's some hints of flesh tone, and I guess the hair is black, which would make sense because it matches the type. So this person hasn't gone overboard with throwing every color in the crayon box in there, but stuck with a very specific palette to communicate that idea. I love this one. So Shawshank Redemption, and there's different versions of this movie poster, but this is the one the student chose. But I love the redo. So this really harkens back to the things that we explored on Monday, with starting from simple, basic geometric shapes, working to more complex geometric shapes, to literal freeform shapes, and then shape fitting and shape shifting and shape conforming. So this silhouette, you see a hand tool that has been minimalized to the point of it just being the silhouette of a rock hammer. And we recognize it as that, no problem. We don't need any other details to let us know that that's a rock hammer. Also, if you've seen the movie, you understand the symbolism of that rock hammer. But also incorporating the silhouette of, I forgot his character's name in the movie. His name was Red, but Andy, thank you. But incorporating his silhouette and raggeting the edge of the handle of that rock hammer so that it looks like it's part of the tunnel that they dig out through. So I thought that was just so beautiful, simple, really elegant, and just black and white. Just, you can't get any more simple than that. But that's very dynamic. This is another one that I really like. A very similar idea, Impossible Mission. So, this is the original poster. There's a lot going on there. A lot of different characters. But even when I keep talking about color scheme, okay, even in these examples that I've been showing you of the original movie posters, there's a color scheme that's being adhered to. So, earth tones, warm tones, not a lot of cool colors except for maybe the rooftops of these buildings, and that's about it. And in this example, it's just stripped away of all detail. You can't get any more minimalist than this unless you've made this guy a stick figure. But just capturing his silhouette in that expression, in that pose. We understand, this line element and that he's teetering from it, like a puppet. And then using a simple line element. I really like the way that's placed to create a division for the type elements. Also, it also plays around with the silhouetted figure above because it creates this kind of tension. He's suspended from this rope, and that he's about to make impact, and there's that line there, that creates this tension of him being, closer to danger than he should be, because, you could view this as the surface that he, would go splat on. The Help. So here is another movie poster, the original poster. Lots of color in this, but not too much. They still stick with a color scheme in this. So it's a complementing color scheme for the most part. You've got purples and yellows. And then kind of adjacent. So you've got some pink in here too. The park bench, excuse me, park bench is green, but so are elements in her dress that are a little bit green. So that helps it to tie in. But my point is it's not just completely filled with, tons of different colors. There's a very restricted color palette there. And then in the redo, this is just simplified to the most basic human forms that you can come up with for, females, and it speaks to race and class. And then you have this dividing line down the middle, which is a very powerful symbol for what this, for the theme of this movie. That everybody's supposed to stay in their own sides, or there should be separations between race and class at all times. And so that line is there to symbolize that. So I thought that was a really interesting approach. Very minimalist, very simple.
I like that a lot.
The Shining, I do too. I love this movie so much. You have no idea. Like, this, if I had to live on a deserted island for the rest of my life, I would take this movie with me and Coal Miner's Daughter. Those are my two favorite movies, and Wizard of Oz. But I love this movie so much, and my husband actually bought me this rug, and for Christmas, and he didn't know it when it came in the mail. When we unrolled it, it actually has this type at the bottom of it, The Shining, or it says the movie name, and I was like, well, now I can't use that. I mean, that's too gimmicky. If it were just this pattern, I'd totally use it, But I didn't want type on my rug, so we still have it in the attic. I've never actually used it.
You just put something on top of the end of it.
Like, yeah, but it's in a weird spot.
Of course it is.
Where it's going to go in my house, in my living room, it wouldn't make sense to put anything on that end of the. It would just be something in the way, in the way of traffic. I know, but I've kept it because maybe someday I'll have the right place to put it. But if you've seen this movie, you know what this element is about, and it's that rug, that carpet that little boy is always riding his big wheel down those long, scary hallways. And so I thought that was a great element to pull from that movie. I mean, there's a lot of really great scenes that you could have pulled from that, Red drum. They could have pulled from all kinds of scenes. There's so many iconic scenes in this movie, but that was just great. I thought that really just brought it home. And that might be the end of my little dog and pony show. All right, so in this last assignment, you guys know what the directions are now. Start finding your favorite movie poster and think about how you can create a simplified version of that poster. All right? So no photographs, no effects. Only textures can be communicated through simple, basic, geometric or free-form geometric shapes. Shapes that you have embellished. But they have to be solid, filled, vector arc shapes to communicate things like textures, objects, spaces, things like that. Also think about color. So how does color help to support the concept of the thing? You need to think about type style. How does your choice of type style support the concept of the thing, of the movie? Okay? So these are the things that you have to think about. And I hope you guys enjoy working on this assignment, and I cannot wait to see what you come up with because it is always so much fun. It's probably my most favorite assignment. So anyway, I hope you guys, if you have any questions, ask them now or you can email them to me later. But I hope you all enjoyed this demonstration. I hope you got some good information and some good guidance on what the expectation is for this last assignment. And so this is our last day to meet as a class. Next week is finals week. There is no final for this class. I will be here every day of the week except for Friday. So I'll be here from 11:30 till 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And I'm here to meet with you guys, help you tie up loose ends, go over anything that you need help with. And that's really how I handle my final exam days. So if you don't have any questions for me, that's it for today, folks. I hope you all enjoyed this class.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to the second one.
Me too.